Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. Today I have a very good surprise for you all, okay? I'm interviewing a YouTuber that I've been following for quite a while, and if you guys go check out her channel, I'm sure that you will subscribe because there's a lot of quality there. So today I have the pleasure of talking to Miss Erin Scott of the Erin T Scott YouTube channel. I have been subscribed to Erin's channel for a while now, and I was really excited after I contacted her with a request to do a collaborative interview with us and asking her to share her insights with our community. And she actually emailed me back. I was surprised. I was like, wow, I got an email back from Erin. So hello, Erin, and welcome to the Alaska Prepper channel. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome, Rudy. It's been a pleasure to meet you and start chatting with you because we're all in the same community, and you should not be surprised that I responded because that's the whole thing I advocate for is us working together. So I'm very happy to work with and collaborate with the expansion of our awakening, our shifting in our thinking as humanity. So anytime I can assist or share or anything, and you've seen my channel. I've interviewed quite a few people and quite a few big name people, and you shouldn't be scared about doing that. Rudy, you've got a lot of things that you've presented on your channel, so I would encourage you definitely to reach out to others. And some of the other people that I've interviewed, or myself, or just had conversations with, just came from me sending them a message on their videos and say, hey, I want to talk to you.
Oh, that's awesome. That is great. So, well, as you know, Erin, if you've watched a few of my videos, one of the models of the Alaska Prepper community is to reach one, teach one, and repeat, because it's not a competition on who can get the most subscribers. I think it's a competition on how many people we can wake up and have them come to the realization that really they have to use their own critical thinking and make up their own minds as to what's best for them instead of listening to someone else. So I even tell my subscribers, don't believe what I tell you. Take it with a grain of salt and do your own research so that you can go through your own awakening process. Instead of believing in someone else, believe in yourself, that you can do your own research. So that's mainly what we're about in this community. We want to wake people up, and we want them to be prepared to be able to take care of themselves in the case that a local or systemic event happens to where they're cut off from the daily pleasures that we take or that we take for granted. If we're cut off from those things, we want to make sure that people are prepared. I always say that the more people that are prepared, the better it is for you and the better it is for me. So having said that, very, very happy to have you here. Would you mind taking a minute or two to introduce yourself to the community and tell them what your channel's about and what your objectives and goals are, and pretty much what got you going in the path that you're in right now?
Yeah, there's a lot to it, and I've done this with several other YouTubers. So every time I share that backstory, it's a little bit different because we have long lives that we live, and one day is different from the next. But to echo your statement just a minute ago, my favorite statement on my channel is listen to all and follow none. I strive to share with people the notion of becoming teachable or having a high teachability index so that we can learn. And one of the biggest issues that we've had in the last few generations is our educational systems have been driven into the ground, and it's a sad thing for Americans, is because most of Americans are not very teachable. They learn what they learn, and they think they know it all. They hear something once, and that's it. It's gospel, and they're not capable of thinking or discerning past that. Right. So listen to all, follow none, and be willing to change your belief systems, because as you well know, Rudy, most everything that we've been told and taught, we're finding out has been lies, right?
Yes, absolutely. All propaganda. Propaganda is called up. A lot of people that use the term PR, they say, well, that stands for propaganda, but PR, what it originally stood for when it was created was programmed response.
Yep. And public relations and a bunch of other different acronyms. But what is this? We are all starting to, at some point in time, wake up. And there begins our stories, like with you and with me. The whole point is the beginning of where we wake up. Where did we get red pilled? And generally speaking, most people don't get red pilled, or they don't start to wake up until it hits them in the wallet.
Right.
A job loss, a career change, something to that effect. When the 2008, 9, and 10 financial event occurred, there were a tremendous amount of people that finally woke up. There was a big event back on 2011. In 2001, September 11th, 2001, that woke up a lot of people. There was another event that was supposed to occur on the turn of the century, on the year 2000, 1999, December 31st.
Right.
There was supposed to be an event there. So there's been a lot of things that have occurred, and not all of us wake up when we see some of these things. And generally, most people don't wake up until it hits them in the wallet. And in 2008, 9, and 10, it hit me in the wallet. So for all of you who do not know who I am, I was a civil engineer and surveyor for almost 25 years of my life. I'm now knocking on year number 50. I am a mother and grandmother. 3 children that are in their mid-20s and a grandson that's about 4. And in 2008, I was at the top of my career, living in the wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous Napa, California, up in Yountville, where I was right in the midst of all of these beautiful wineries, making the most money I'd ever made in my career, about $120,000 a year, and I was literally on top of my world. Everything was going well, and then all of a sudden, December of 2007, the plug gets pulled on the whole game. Now, it happened rapidly in California, and I went from, here's a story I like to share with people, and that is, you have resumes and you've had a career, and generally, they tell you in the job world, your resume should usually just be a single sheet front and back at most, or try and squeeze everything down to just the front, because people don't really want to look at a lot of information. Well, my resume came in a 3-ring binder. And that 3-ring binder basically had project data, project details, project information for just about anything that you could imagine, from water systems, sewer systems, subdivisions, highways, large, and I mean large construction projects. One of the biggest ones I ever worked on was the Target Import Center that went in Suffolk, Virginia. That was a 2 million square foot shipping facility, and it sat on a 300-acre tract. Big jobs. So, when I would go in to an engineering office, I'd go up to the lead engineer, the lead surveyor, or the CEO, and I'd put my little 3 three-ring binder down on their desk, and they'd open it up, and they'd flip through it, and they'd go, "Oh, wow, Miss Scott, you did this? Wow, Miss Scott, you even did some of these things, and you've worked on this kind of project?" And so I would get this amazement of all the things that I had done. And then there were generally, in your interviews, you pretty much got the job when your interview's gone past about 30, 45 minutes, and you've been talking for about an hour. You got it. So what I would end up with was 2 questions, and the 2 questions would be, well, with all this background of experience, what do you want to do? And then the second question would be, how much do you want? I literally was able to set my wages in many of the positions that I had because of the qualifications. I even taught at the Joint Apprenticeship Committee there in the Bay Area of California for, I think it was about 2 years. So I was an instructor.
Nice.
And anyway, when you go from that level in your career to within months, literally within months, going from engineering firm to engineering firm, taking that nice little three-ring binder that's got all of this data of the stuff that you've done in it and putting it on the desk of a CEO and going, "Oh, Erin, Miss Scott, this is incredible stuff. We're amazed that you've done all this, and you were an instructor, and going down the list of all of these things, and get to the end of the conversation within about 10 minutes. Well, Mrs. Scott, you have a wonderful, wonderful amount of talents and resources. We would dearly love to be able to make use of those. However, we're gonna ask, can we keep your resume on file here, and we'll call you if something comes up."
Yeah, it's that you're overqualified line, huh?
No, now it's a lot of that. So. I did manage to find another position back across on the East Coast, because I came from Virginia, went to California, and then went back to Virginia. I did manage to find another position at almost a third less,
Wow.
a third of what I was making. So I went from $120,000 a year to 45, and this was in 2008. As I watched the firm that I went to go from 18 offices up and down the East Coast, consecutively 1 month after another, losing one office after another, all through 2008, 2009, down to where there was only 3 offices left. The one in Springfield, Virginia, the one in Norfolk, Virginia, and mine, which was in Newport News, Virginia. And then they finally shut down my office. There were no other engineering jobs. I was at a point where I couldn't get a job. There were none. Half the people that were in my career field had lost their positions and had gone into working at Home Depot or doing something else. Pick your $14 an hour job. So it's a big wake-up call when it hits you in the wallet. Now, there's a lot of people out there that, their job is still going along, but my career in the engineering world pretty much ended. And it ended because the housing market has basically dried up. Even though over the last 10 years, you've seen a lot of the housing prices rebound in a lot of ways, it has not return to the construction phase that we had prior to 2010. What's been pumped back up, basically, Rudy, is the existing home prices because of the money printing. And how money printing has affected everything. Anyway, so long story short, I had to re-engineer my world. When I saw what was going down, when I learned about what was going down in the banking system, when I saw what they were doing for bailout, that clued me into, oh my goodness, this whole thing is fragile. And when we got that information, you come out with I think it was Hank Paulson. I forget the guy, the congressman's name, that made that little statement on, what was it, CNN. He said that we were within 2 hours of the global monetary system shutting down.
Yep, I remember that.
You remember that? What? I didn't ignore that. That scared the shit out of me. And there's my train for all my lovely
nice.
subscribers know about my train. About every 30 minutes to an hour we get one come through. Anyway, so Rudy, I had to do something that most people don't understand how to do. I had a career path that was no longer possible, and I had to figure out, how do I make an income? Because at the time, my children were still minors, and I was the sole income supporter of my children. And I had to figure out how the heck I was going to keep everything up, and it was a challenge. Now, fortunately, I've had some very good mentors in my life and in my world, and I've learned a lot of things, and I've done a lot of things just besides the surveying and the civil engineer. I've gotten a litany of things that I've dealt with. I also had my real estate license in Virginia and in California, and one of the things I know is, successful people don't work a 40-hour job and go home.
That's right.
Those are more of the slave mentality kind of mindset. Truly successful people, the people that succeed enough to really make it in this world, generally are working 100 hours a week. So if I wasn't at my job, there are other things that I was engaging in and learning about how this world works, things that go on. So for me, as an engineer, that period of time, and it wasn't like an aha moment, so to speak. It was this slow, painful, groggy coming out of the sleep mode that, we don't wake up all at one moment. It's generally a process for each of us. Each and every one of us go through days, weeks, and months of slowly coming to accept that what we knew was not what it is, and that what I ended up doing is deciding I needed to literally re-engineer my world. When I swallowed the pill of this global system could shut down within 2 hours, that lit a fire under my butt.
Yeah.
It literally lit a fire under my butt. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, and you know what, Erin? I remember my red pill moment. So I don't know if you know, but I retired from serving in the military, and I remember on my first deployment to Afghanistan, on my way home on my mid-tour leave, I read a book by John Perkins, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. I read that book, and that book right there woke me up, but it still took, you're going to laugh at this, it still took me watching a couple of Alex Jones videos to actually start waking up even more.
Yeah, you have to give old Alex that. He did a good job of grabbing everybody by the shoulders and shaking them real hard and saying, "Get up!"
Yeah, absolutely. So now, Erin, I wanted to see if you can give me a response on this. So I forgot what video it was that I made 2 or 3 videos ago. I had a person comment, and their comment went like this, quote, "I prepped for 15 years. It all gets rotten. Not wasting any more money. It's all BS." What do you think about a person's mentality behind that comment?
All right, so here's the thing. Part of us growing up is the progression of the definitions that we define ourselves as. Because Because if you get stuck defining yourself in one term, I'm a prepper.
Right.
Then you get into a certain line of thinking and you stop expanding your mind. And you need to continue doing new things to understand how to overcome that specific issue. So let's get into that, Rudy. Let's talk about that. When we talked about before, as we were, getting to know each other on the phone the other day, we were starting to get into this topic of, the definitions of being a prepper, and I told you that I don't call myself a prepper. I call myself, if I'm going to put any kind of label on it at all, a homesteader. Now, you got to look back in history, and you got to understand where we came from originally, especially here in the middle of the country where I'm at. This land was settled by preppers, people who were prepared to do whatever they needed to do to take care of themselves.
Right.
But they were sustainable, and they were homesteaders. And the idea is this: you and I and people used to be in this country many, many, many years ago the first initial preppers. Because every spring you would prepare for summer by planting your food. Every summer you would prepare for fall and winter by harvesting your food, and you would be preparing that food to last you long enough till you could get your next growth cycle.
Right, right.
So, you are constantly preparing.
That's correct.
They didn't call themselves preppers. See,
right, that was just living.
Yeah, it was just living sustainably. So I like to say I live sustainably, and I am always learning new ways to do it better. I am not a prepper because the preppers that I've seen, well, they got a bug out bag. Yeah. Right.
But what are they going to do after that runs out?
Yeah, and then you got preppers that they've got a lot of cans of food stored away, like this gentleman made the comment. But here's my question. One of the things that I have shared with all the people that I have done talks for, because back up in Montana, I would go into many of the prepper groups and do talks and try and share some concepts with people that didn't seem to quite grasp the bigger picture. The bigger picture is this is not an event. What's coming down, Rudy, you and I know, it's not an event that's just going to happen for a couple of weeks or a couple of months and everything's going to go back to normal. That's not going to happen. What we're talking about is a fundamental change in how we physically exist on this planet. We have to change that because we are in a death spiral as humanity is dealing with it in these old systems. The monetary system, the food system, the power system, all of these things have to fundamentally change if humanity is going to survive. And we're at a very close point to being fatal in our action in many ways. So my question that I would ask people in my talks that I would do up in Montana would be, okay, an event occurs, and we've all heard the speculations of all the different kinds of events that could possibly occur. We've experienced those. Many who will probably watch this video or listen to this video have experienced these events within the last 12 months. We're talking snowstorms, we're talking hurricanes, we're talking earthquakes, we're talking about all kinds of natural things. But we also have the man-made ones like EMPs, banking crisis. The point is, it doesn't matter which. Let's pose the question. Something happens. You don't necessarily know what happens, maybe the communications go down like has been threatened, and you don't even know. But you have to go home. And you have to go home to whatever it is that you have. Now, there's many people on the internet that have said this from a financial standpoint. Bill Holter's a good one who says it all the time. When this thing happens, what you got is what you got. That's it. So you have to go home, answer for yourself, and don't say it out loud, because guess what? You won't be honest if you do. Everybody will lie. Everybody will say, "Oh, I can do this. I can do." But be honest. Be honest with yourself. How long could you make it without leaving your current residence? Now,
that would be a great exercise right there. That there is a great exercise for everyone to do.
So let's dive into that question a little bit, because it's a very vague one, and people immediately start to have thoughts roll through their head, but they're not going to have all the thoughts. They're not going to really be able to evaluate their situation until we expand on it a little bit. So let's look at every system that you depend on in your current living situation. And mind you, a lot of these might mean that, guess what? Where you're living is not the place you want to be.
Right.
I mean, I've made 2 strategic moves, and I'm about ready to make a third, or into a place that's more suitable for my solutions to these issues. So what are the issues? On my channel, I tell everybody, you need to declare your independence. You need to declare your independence from everything you depend on from outside your own productive systems. Do you have a power source to run your electronic equipment? Your power tools, your lights, do you have the ability, if the grid goes down, do you have a power source? And generally there's only one answer to that, and that's solar. Because if you have to depend on only what you can produce, and I'm producing solar electricity off of my solar panels right now, they're running my freezers. Okay, well, you and I talked about, we just had this generator, right? We did the cute little reviews we did on our channels of that same generator. But you and I would have to depend on gasoline to run that thing, right?
That's right.
Bingo. Now you're starting to dissect your own dependencies. Where do you get your food from? Which foods do you normally consume that you would need to or want to continue to consume? What foods really should you be eating anyway? That's a whole different conversation. We won't go into the nutrition food situation, but the point is you got to eat.
Right.
So okay, you bought a lot of cans and they're going bad. Well, that's because you haven't learned to cycle your systems out.
Right, you need to rotate them.
You should be eating what you're storing and storing what you eat.
That's right.
So everybody used to say, well, beans, bullets, and bullion. Okay, yeah, you got you some silver and you got you some bullets and you got you some beans, but beans, rice, and those things don't have a significant and broad nutritional content. You need to be able to produce it. What is food? Why did most of the people in the 1929-1930 Depression not die? Yeah, they were running around in ragtag clothing because they couldn't afford it, but they lived. Why did they live? Because they all had gardens at that point in time. We didn't have major super center stores or grocery stores until the mid-40s. Up at that point, everybody grew their own food. Either that or there were larger local growers, not huge distribution systems on fossil fuels.
Right.
So when you ask that question to yourself, is it 3 days, like what is calculated the average U.S. American is prepared for? Is it 3 weeks? Is it 3 months? I personally worked through these issues to the point where I felt comfortable saying, you know what, even though I don't necessarily have everything in place that I want, I'm always willing to improve something. I am at least at a place where if I went onto a piece of property right now and I could not leave for whatever conditions and reasons, that I could comfortably be there for the rest of my physical life.
That's great, and I think that what a lot of people don't look at is what I call points of failure. So, for example, if you're talking about electricity, you take a look at what you have, and one point of failure would be the grid going down. So what's your backup? And do you have more than one backup? And how many points of failures for each backup do you have? So, for example, I now have 2 generators, right? If one goes out, I have another one. And I have a heater that heats my home that runs on fuel, but it needs electricity. So I went ahead and had a non-electric heater installed. So now I've got more than one point of failure that I can rely on in that situation, and so forth. And then you go on to wood and things like that. But a lot of people don't realize that what they're used to on an everyday basis, it takes a lot of work and a lot of energy for you to be able to turn on that switch in your house. There's a lot of stuff going on behind the background that you're not aware of. And once you start identifying those points of failures, you'll be able to prepare a little bit better for when they fail, because eventually they will fail eventually. And I think that some people are pretty intimidated because there's really a lot to learn. And some people would rather.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, they would rather live in a normalcy bias than to actually step up their game and actually learn what they would need to do in order to fend for themselves per se. So yeah, that's a great point.
So there's 2 energy sources, because we need energy. 2 main energy sources that I consider my primary sources of energy for my homestead. One is wood, which means I built my own wood stove that would be able to heat water. So there's a water jacket that I built for the inside of the wood stove that I can thermal siphon and make hot water for sanitation and cooking and stuff. The other is solar, is with the sun. And what I wanted to say, you were in the military too, and I was in the Air Force, and one of the things they teach you is redundancy.
That's right.
So my solution well, Erin, you got your solar equipment, but suppose something happens. Suppose you get an EMP on your solar equipment. Well, guess what? I have 3 inverters. I have 3 charge controllers. I have extra solar panels. I have extra inverters. I got extras.
Right, and redundancy is a big thing. Redundancy is a big thing because even if you have your own, eventually that is going to fail as well. So it is important to have redundancy in your Reliant lifestyle, or as I would say it, in your preps. So Erin, you know what? I think we're already running a little over 41 minutes, and I actually have a lot more that I can talk to you about. However, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it off with one last question, and then hopefully here in the future, maybe after the new year, we can get together again, because I can see us doing a few more videos and talking about the things that we've been talking about now, because I think it's important for people to hear different perspectives. Like, for example, here I have a channel called Alaska Prepper. But your perspective is that you shouldn't label yourself. You should just be able to be reliant on yourself and do whatever it takes to be reliant on yourself, which is a very great point, because that's what being reliant is. And you and I talked about it before. I've had a lot of people leave comments about spirituality, and you and I talked a little bit in the past about that, and we talked about how being self-reliant is spiritual in itself, because to be self-reliant means to produce your own things, and to produce your own things means to interact with nature, and that in itself is a spiritual thing. So I think that was a great point that you made in saying that. Can I ask you one last question? This is really off the cuff. So I just wanted to get your perspective on this, because I do know that you do a lot of technical and fundamental analysis on what's going on in the market. So I just wanted to ask you this. Let's say that you have $100,000, okay? And you have no debt. Knowing what's going on with the economy, knowing what's going on with the, as I like to say, fake stock market, what would you do if you had $100,000 in cash, you had no debt, knowing what's going on with the economy? What would you do with that money? Would you leave it in the bank? Would you store it under your pillow? Would you convert it into something else? What would you do?
All right, so I'm going to take that as in a clean slate. All right, so because there's different people and different perspectives that are going to have some holes filled in and some holes that aren't filled in. Some things that they've done, some things that aren't. But let's just speculate. Let's just speculate. You got Mr. Johnson. He for whatever reason, he just lost his job. He's got $100,000 in the bank, but he has done no prepping. He doesn't own a house. He doesn't even know where he's at. And all of a sudden, he loses his job, and does a couple of researches online, because he couldn't do it before. He had his job. He didn't know what to look at because he had his job.
Right.
His job consumed everything, and so he's never had the time to even turn a computer on. But now that he doesn't have a job, Mr. Johnson says, "Okay, I don't understand what's going on. There's, I hear it on the TV in the background how everything's going good, but all of a sudden I lose my job." And they say, "Well, there's nothing they can do." And let's just say he's really good at doing a lot of research, and all of a sudden he finds out all the information that you and I have been sharing for years, and he does it in a week. And he knows now everything you and I know. We're magically gonna give him all the knowledge that we have, so that he can make good judgments on everything that he could do. So before I answer this entirely, I'm going to interject this part of it, this part of the answer based on current conditions. Rudy, it is my perspective that we are currently observing and watching the crash as it begins, or
right.
the reset. That it is a process, that we're not looking for a specific day of an event, but it is something that has been going on, and it's how this particular cycle ends. We are in the end. It is happening now. And regardless of whether we get major 2,000-point drops in the stock market tomorrow, or whether gold and silver go up tomorrow, or if it's a week or 2 weeks from tomorrow, because a lot of us look for those two key indicators. There are so many other things that have said this whole year has been the turning point for the last 10-year cycle. Okay, knowing that is going to put the emphasis on the speed at which anybody listening to this conversation should act, which means time is extremely short for anybody. So let's say Mr. Johnson gets a fire under his butt, like I did when we were in the middle of the last crisis, and he's got $100,000 in his account. All right, first thing I would do is relocate to a place that allows him to have natural resources for which he can live off of. Preferably a plot of land that's got a lot of elbow room around it, has trees on it, potentially at least one natural source of water if you can. If not, maybe a well. But if you have a well, you're going to have a power source to extract the water. And what I would do is I would consider maybe 50% of his $100,000, so up to $50,000, to establish him a debt-free ownership of a piece of land that will provide for him. Has reasonably decent soil to grow some food on, good trees for wood, hopefully enough wildlife around that he can harvest maybe some deer or turkey or something while they're still around, because they do deplete during economic hardships. And then, let's see, we got 50,000 left. What do we do with that? Well, I would say I would probably take between 10 and 20% from that neighborhood and convert it back over to the original constitutional and biblical monies, somewhere between 10,000 and 20,000, and I would go put it in gold and silver. Something that would give him future wealth, and at these undervalued prices, he'd be able to put quite a bit away for that.
Right.
Let's just say Mr. Johnson puts 20,000 into silver and gold, and goes to his new piece of property, and he buries it in the backyard, so that out of the reach, the ability for anybody to touch. He now has that protected and safe. The next thing I would do is take the remaining 30,000 and start installing systems, as we talked about, that he could use for Reliant and independent. Water collection system if you don't have a well, for rainwater, purification systems, canning, or some kind of food preservation systems, food dehydrators, canners, cases of canning, jars, seeds, tons of seeds,
yes.
Solar equipment, buying a solar system so that there's power, making sure you've got a good freezers, maybe a couple of freezers, chainsaws, tools. Tools are an incredibly important thing. You've got to be able to fix the things that you have, because if things sound like we think the potential is for, you just may not have anything available for you to fix it. When you buy things, getting two of, have a backup, and then start putting in the systems with that $30,000 really rock and roll. Now, he probably had any food store, so he probably would pick $2,000 to $4,000. And we put that in to a minimum of 6 months to a year's worth of food backup.
Right.
Now, he's got a backup food supply. He's got a training system, got solar, the power in. He could, with $100,000, not only preserve his wealth by putting 10 to 20% into some precious metals, but put in the remaining systems. Maybe he buys a little tractor and stocks up on some diesel fuel. Diesel fuel stock for a long time. Or maybe he gets a propane system. Propane is really cheap right now, and you can buy lots of it and store it forever.
Yeah, last indefinitely, yes.
So there's a lot of things that you could do, but Mr. Johnson just lost his job. He's got very short period of time to put all these things into effect. He's got to learn about all his systems that he depends on, and then figure out how he's going to turn his career into becoming a producer of natural resources and foods and stuff for his own thing. This is what I would do if I had my knowledge and were in his shoes all the time.
Well, that's a great answer, Erin. So, Erin, you still there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, I thought we lost you there for a minute. I was like, oh no, we lost Erin. Well, Erin, unfortunately, my computer is running out of power, and I'm not near a socket. So I would really appreciate it, Erin, and if maybe in the future you can come back on. I think we've got a lot to talk about, and I think that the AP community is really going to benefit from listening to your ideas. And I hope that in the future you'll accept an invitation to come back on. I'm going to put you on the spot and see what you say.
And Rudy, to have you in reverse on my channel at some point too. But let me share with everybody this. Those that are my followers on my channel. know that I've got it set up. Everything that I just told you about that scenario, I'm getting ready to do. I have accumulated, because land has been so expensive, I have accumulated all the other physical assets that I want. Reading equipment, solar hot water panels, solar panels, all the homesteading materials that I want. The only thing I have is land. And a few days, I just signed a contract to get 7.5 acres. So on my channel, for those individuals who want to see a homestead get put in a midst.
Erin, you still there? Oh, it sounds like we might be losing Erin, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize for the static. Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to give Erin... Oh, there she is. Yeah, we lost you, Erin. You back?
Yeah, I'm back. You'll have to do some editing.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. My community knows that I am technically challenged, and they get what they get.
Yeah, it's okay. So let me finish it up.
Yeah.
Most of this last year, I've done a lot of political and technical discussions on my channel. I'm going to shift back to the homesteading topics on my channel. Great. As I take this piece of property and turn it into a sustainable homestead. So anybody who's interested in seeing some of the engineering of my homestead, they can come watch it on my channel, and they can see what I'm going to be doing to take care of all of these system issues on my homestead, and building a cabin. Nice. And putting in chicken coops and greenhouses and water collection systems and all of that.
That'll be great. I'll be able to learn a lot from that too, because I'm in the process of hopefully next year, after the snow breaks here, of starting to work on my own small homestead as well. So that'll be great to be able to follow you doing that, and it'll be a nice journey to be able to record for people to learn from. So well. So
I definitely invite anybody who's interested in these things to come along for the ride and enjoy the trials and failures and the successes that I'll have, because there will be a few failures, but mostly successes.
Yeah, and that's fine, because I tell a lot of people that don't be afraid to fail, because we learn more from failing than from succeeding.
That's for sure. That's for sure. Well, Rudy, it's been a pleasure discussing these things with you, and we will do it again sometime in the near future.
Yeah, that sounds great. Erin, let me thank you so much for coming on. I know that you're a very busy person, so I truly appreciate that you took the time today to come and share some of your perspectives and views with our community. So thank you very much. If you wouldn't mind, Erin, hanging on the phone here until I sign off, and then we can do our goodbyes, all right? So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Erin T. Scott from the Erin T. Scott YouTube channel. Any of you, and I highly recommend it, that would like to go and check her channel out, I will be leaving a link to her channel on my description. So please click on that, go check it out, and go ahead and subscribe, because there's a lot to learn over there. All right, so having said that, remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. This is Alaska Prepper and Erin T. Scott, and I'm out.